Welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today on the show, I'm talking to Mike Nelson, the Vice President of Marketing for Martin Guitars. Mike is one of many, many people that I've met through our annual Fretboard Summit that takes place in Chicago every August. And I thought I'd get him on the show because what a job. He's got one of the greatest legacy brands of all time in the world of music and even outside of music. And he's got to market not only the legacy of the company, but also their new products and to a super passionate fan base, but also to brand new people who maybe somehow don't even know about Martin Guitars and their history. I thought it was fascinating. I hope you enjoy this conversation. You can meet Mike at our Fretboard Summit, and you can go to fretboardsummit.org to read up on it. It's August 21st to 23rd at the Old Town School of Folk Music. So I'll be really honest with you all. There was a much longer intro to this podcast. This is a shorter interview, and I recorded about a 20-minute intro where I went over some of our 2025 Fretboard Journal planning, some of the fun projects that are happening, some of the things that I know you will want to know about that we have brewing. But the fires hit in Southern California, and it's just been devastating to watch. And my heart goes out to everybody down there who is affected by this. And it's not the right time for me to hype all the fun stuff that we have brewing for 2025. So I just want to let everybody down there know our hearts go out to you. I want everybody outside of California who maybe doesn't think that they know anybody who's been affected by these fires. If you've listened to this podcast before, if you are a regular listener to the Fretboard Journal podcast, if you read our magazine, I can guarantee you there are a lot of people who we've had on this podcast and featured in the magazines whose lives have been dramatically changed because of these fires that are going on right now. And a lot of beautiful instruments have been lost, and a lot of lives are going to need some help. So I'm going to include some links to some resources if anybody out there wants to help out. Obviously, if anybody out there is listening to this in California and wants to share your story with the rest of the Fretboard Journal community, reach out to me, podcast@fretboardjournal.com. I am recording this on January 9th, and Sophia Wolfson, our newest employee, an amazing human being, incredible singer-songwriter, is doing 2 shows in the Pacific Northwest that we've had planned for a while. They are actually Fretboard Journal Presents events. One of them is tomorrow, January 10th at Strum in Portland. She's going to be donating proceeds from her merch sales to fire relief efforts. And then on the 11th, she's playing up here in Seattle at the Rabbit Box Theater. I'll be there, and we'll be doing the same. So if anybody wants to attend those shows, if by some odd chance you're hearing this and are in our greater region, please come. Jacob Miller's opening, incredible musician. You will love seeing both of these performers. They are 2 of my favorite people. And it's just good to be around our community. Speaking of community, this podcast is brought to you, as always, by Stringjoy Strings, Peghead Nation, and Mike's Guitar Bar. Go to the show description. I'll include some links. There's some deals from both Stringjoy and Peghead Nation that you should all go chase down. And as always, if you patronize any of our sponsors, let them know that you appreciate them sponsoring the Fretboard Journal podcast. All right, as is probably apparent, I recorded this interview with Mike a few weeks ago. I hope you enjoy it, and thanks as always for tuning in to the Fretboard Journal podcast. Mike, thanks for chatting.
Hi, Jason. It's great to see you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
We don't, we do 50 episodes of the Fretboard Journal podcast every year, and the business of guitar, the business of guitar selling, the business of guitar storytelling, we don't really talk about it that much. Usually we talk to luthiers, sometimes people who collect old Martins, great players. I thought this was would be a cool opportunity to hear your point of view of first of all, I don't even know, Mike, what is your official title these days?
VP of Global Marketing.
Okay. So what is the day in the life of Mike Nelson look like?
Well, it really isn't a typical day, which is why I love this job so much. It really depends on the time of year. Right now, here we are, end of 2024. We're getting ready for NAM. So I'm spending a lot of time just on the little details of NAM and, all the products that we're going to be launching, making sure we've got everything ready for that. But we're, depending on the time, I could be working on an event, another big event like a festival, or negotiating with artists for signature models. The digital world never sleeps, so we're constantly updating our website with new content and social media. Strategizing there. So that, like I said, that's the beauty of this job, is it's different every day, and it's always changing too. I think one of the things that I spend a lot of time on is just keeping up with where we're going with marketing, whether it's a new social media channel or new technology like AI. I mean, you can't ignore that. So learning as well as executing all the projects and everything we have going on keeps me pretty busy.
I can imagine. I've interviewed Thomas, your boss, on the show before. I've interviewed Fred Green on the show before. When new ideas at Martin are hatched, do they run them by you first and say, like, can we even market this? Is this good? Or do you kind of inherit the ideas and have to figure out how to tell the world about them?
It used to be that way. It used to be, here we're making this, figure out how to sell it, how to market it. But we've got a really collaborative environment here. Fred and I and Thomas and everybody else on the product and sales teams are constantly talking. We know what we're working on 3 years out, and we talk about, where does this fit within the market? Is there really a need there? How is this different from what we already have? We have those conversations constantly, and an idea will start over here, and then through those conversations, it'll morph into something else, and then finally what you see when we launch.
3 years out. So in 2021, there were ideas that came out this year.
Yeah. It generally can take that long. I mean, we can get things to market much quicker, but we're looking at least 3 years out with the product roadmap, and building a new guitar, especially one from scratch, takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of time to figure out how to tell that story and where we're gonna tell that story and how we're gonna show up in the market.
I just keep thinking, like, the world has changed dramatically over the course of 3 years. Do ideas ever get scrapped of, like, this sounded great 3 years ago, but I don't think the world's ready for it?
Yeah, they usually get scrapped because they were a lot harder than we thought they were going to be.
Sure.
Luckily, the guitar world doesn't change that dramatically, although the pandemic definitely changed some things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But this isn't like consumer electronics. We don't have to worry about things changing so much in next quarter or next year. We're pretty safe with the product roadmap.
Yeah. During the pandemic, everybody decided they were a bread baker and a guitar player.
Yes.
Sales were booming. How, when you look back on 2024, is it the classic market correction or the hangover after the party? How do you view 2024?
Well, there's no doubt the boom is over. And I think a lot of companies are feeling that market correction. I'm happy to say it hasn't hit Martin. We're having our best year ever.
Wow.
And yeah, and I think that's just a credit to the team and Chris Martin and the brand that we've built over the years to be able to sustain that level. And I think part of it is that we actually never really caught up after the pandemic because we had such a backlog and we were just filling that backlog. And we were just very fortunate that demand really hasn't dipped at all for us.
So when you say 2024 was your best year ever, can you attribute that to like a couple of new things that came out? Or is just like, no, we've just had this slow, steady growth, meeting demand, and it got better?
Yeah, I think the key is that we had a really strong foundation.
Yeah.
And we haven't veered too much from who we are for decades and even centuries. But that said, we've done a lot of new things. We launched our SC platform back in 2020.
Yeah.
Completely, that was a really new thing for us. The market was kind of taken by surprise, but that was not looking 1 or 2 years out. That was looking 5, 10 years out, and that is really starting to take hold for us. So these new innovations that's one part of it. We're constantly updating the product line. So last year or earlier this year, we revamped the X series. That's really, that really helped stem any potential, decline in that market, because we had all these new features and just a great guitar. And then some of the things we're doing on the marketing side too. We rebranded, so to speak. We had a new brand strategy. We launched that about a little over a year ago with a new look and feel. You can kind of see the design here behind me. And to be honest, it was a really fun project, but also a really daunting project, because I think one of my jobs here is to not screw it up, right? We've got this great brand with a long history.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about rebranding, we realized we needed to do something, because the brand was getting a little bit stale. I think people were looking at Martin as, your grandfather or father's guitar, maybe a little old-fashioned. We needed to freshen it up, but we couldn't do something radical. And so we did this brand refresh. We looked at, who are we? What's our brand purpose? We discovered we're all about unleashing the artist within. So everything we're doing now, and for the last year and a half, is about helping artists grow and improve and take their whatever journey they're on, and we'll be a part of that journey and just make it better. So once we did that and we refreshed the look and feel, we kind of reinvigorated the brand, and I think people are reacting to that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have the luxury and the burden of centuries of people's thoughts about Martin and how great they are, and don't screw this up. And it is kind of funny that you're talking about the SC now. It seems almost like old news when that came out, but I'm sure there are droves of people just finding it for the first time or accepting it for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you have a brand like ours. It takes a while for people to accept new things. And that's why we do think long term, because if we're not, we end up falling behind, and it's very hard to catch up.
Where did you come from? Where were you before Martin?
So I can't believe I've been with Martin now a little over 6 years.
Yeah.
And before that, I was in the watch and jewelry business. I was with Swatch Group, and before that, I was with Tag Heuer. And I'd always wanted to get into the music business. In fact, I've worked with Sony in collaborations, and Carnegie Hall and some other music entities. And when Martin called and said they had this opening, I was like, this is perfect. And the beauty of it is that there's a lot of parallels between watches and jewelries and guitar, because the customer is very similar. They're very passionate about it. And I worked in the high end. It was all luxury watches. And they love it, that attention to detail. They appreciate the craftsmanship. So it really wasn't a very difficult transition to go from that to guitars.
Is it easier to market a watch, a high-end watch, or a high-end guitar?
It's different. It's I can't say one is easier than the other. It might actually be a little easier. Don't tell Chris Martin this, but it might actually be easier to market guitars, because you don't need a watch, right? That is a luxury. That is not a necessity. If you're a musician and you play guitar, you need a guitar. So that is your tool. But it is kind of the same. Even though it is a tool for musicians, there's still an emotional connection there, an emotional element. And that's how we sold watches, and that's how you ultimately sell Martin guitars is to create that emotional connection.
I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised that you'd say that way, because I look at the watch world, and I'm not a watch. I don't even know what a watch collector's called these days. I'm sure there's a special name for them.
Watchista.
Yeah. Okay. I look at what's going on at Hodinkee, the media site for watches. I look, and it seems like watch companies can unveil these obscenely priced watches, and watch collectors just accept like, oh, that's what it sells for. Whereas I feel like if a guitar is sold above a certain price point, the initial knee-jerk reaction was, I could have bought that 15 years ago for blank, or nobody needs more than one guitar. Whereas I think the watch people are just like, yeah, I got 10 watches. I've got one for every day of the week and then a couple for special occasions. I don't know. Maybe I'm off.
It's funny. I think what you see as the outsider are kind of the exception. I went through the exact same thing with watch buyers. Why is anybody going to spend this?
Okay.
The prices have gone up as so much over the last few years. The price of gold is this. How can you charge that? And it's so much of it comes down to this craftsmanship, this idea of being handmade or having this patrimony behind the manufacturer. And same thing for Martin. We've got plenty of consumers who will look at the price and say, I can't imagine spending that much for a guitar. And then they come to the factory and they see how it's made. And they go, I can't believe you're only charging that much for the guitar. It should be much more. So it is so interesting how the parallels are very, very close.
I guess I'm just viewing the grass as always greener in some other industry. But I do take note. It is interesting to see how stories are told outside of the world of guitar and try to figure out how to apply them here.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done a lot of that, whether it's the events that we do or just the messaging. Like I said, it really does come back to that emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. It's what the Fretboard Journal lives for, and why we do our Fretboard Summit, which you guys have been at, which has been amazing. How do you make that emotional connection, though, when we're talking about, AI and TikTok and all the trends seem to be lacking a little emotions?
That's a great question. And it is getting harder and harder. And it's getting harder and harder to break through all the clutter.
Yeah.
And I think number one, it's about consistency. It's about, just continuing to drive home your message, what we're all about. And I mentioned it before, unleashing the artist. So if we start everything we do with thinking, okay, how is this going to help our artists? How is this going to, are we celebrating our artists? That kind of gives us a baseline to work from. So we're actually starting with the emotion. And then hopefully it comes through in anything we're doing, whether it's a social post or a web page or an activation at an event. And so if we start with that emotion, and starting with the understanding of who the consumer is and what their pain points are and what are they thinking about, and we can connect on that level subliminally sometimes and sometimes directly. And most emotion comes just naturally. You don't even realize it. It just happens. So if we're doing a good job, our consumers will have that connection and not even realize it.
Mm-hmm. And how much of your energy is spent marketing existing products that maybe have been around for decades versus like the new Joe Bonamassa or Johnny Marr or whatever the new thing is?
I think most of our energy is spent on new, because we do release so many new models. It's not just at NAMM anymore. We had, I think, 6 different release dates this year. So we're just keeping up with that. But what we try to do, one, is to maintain a consistent brand and weave in other areas where maybe we don't necessarily need to promote a new guitar. Social media is one place, we're constantly posting there. So, we get to talk about the standard series, the D28s,
Sure.
we can talk about our junior models, even though they're not new there. So we try to mix it in, so that just to remind people, it's not all just about the new stuff. We've got our tried and true here, and it still works just fine.
Yeah. You guys are wildly influential. I know a lot of guitar makers, large and small, listen to this. Where on the social front do you put most of your energy? How is it divided up? Like, I'm not on TikTok right now, or Blue Sky, or some of the newer things. Are you guys on all of them equally, or do you focus on a couple?
No, we realize you can't be on all of it. And our philosophy is, we want to do it right. Mm-hmm. So if we can't do it right, we're not going to jump in. So yeah, the Blue Skies and the others, the Snapchats of the world, we're not playing there. But in TikTok, we jumped in earlier this year. We were probably a little late to the game on that, but we wanted to make sure we understood what it was about and that we could manage it. Instagram and Facebook are still very important, and probably the most important is YouTube.
Yeah.
Is we put a lot of energy into, creating good content for YouTube, because that's where most guitar players go.
Yeah. And is it on you to reach out to the influencers of the world and the YouTubers? And
yeah, I love that part of my job. Whether it's, a YouTuber that does lessons, or somebody who has a shtick, that we think could fit, just getting to know them. It's a brave new world out there, and I'm learning every day how it works, and it's been really, really good for us.
It's so fascinating to me that, as somebody who's been around Martins my whole life, and the Fretboard Journal's coming on 20 years, like, Rhett Scholl just posted a video yesterday or this week comparing the new dread, or, basically almost every variation of the Martin Dreadnought.
Yes,
it's available today. And it was like wildly popular, and it was like, oh, people are still kind of like, wow, I would have thought that story would have been told long ago, but people are still seeking it and still seeking original viewpoints. And it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. I mean, Rhett's great. Love working with him. It just goes to show you there are always new people coming into the market.
Yeah.
Number one. And there's always maybe a slightly different way to tell the same story, and it might resonate with different people. So yeah, let's just keep going back to that well if it works.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get some new people, new fans of the brand because of it.
What can you tell me about 2025 at Martin, and how you don't need to go over what you're going to release at NAMM. I know you won't. But what can you tell me about how you're viewing the year? Obviously, a lot of folks are kind of uncertain about what 2025 is going to look like, politically at least.
Yeah, obviously the political situation is a big unknown, and we don't know what will happen with tariffs and other things. So we would obviously watch that closely. But we are optimistic. We've got some good momentum going into the beginning of the year. We've got some great new products, a number of new artist models coming out throughout the year that I think your listeners especially will love.
Okay. Intriguing.
That's all I can say. Can't say any more than that.
All right.
And, we don't see any one segment outperforming the other necessarily. I think all of our segments, whether it's the sub $1,000 guitars or all the way up to our custom shop guitars, are all look to be pretty strong. We did invest heavily though in the custom shop. We just recently opened our new custom shop experience center, and that really came about because we saw we realized that we've got this world-class custom shop and we can do just about anything, and the quality and craftsmanship is unmatched, but we didn't have an experience to match that. Mm-hmm. So we built this space where if you're here to spec out a custom or pick up a custom guitar that you ordered, now you can actually experience what a custom shop guitar is all about in this beautiful, relaxing space, cool vibe. Artists can come and hang out there. So that's one area where we expect to see some good growth because we're investing in it, and that's been something that Martin's been really well known for decades. So.
Is that almost like a lounge where, when you're getting the guitar of your dreams, you've got the beautiful couch and drinks are served? Is that how it goes?
Yeah, pretty much. We want you to feel like you're on vacation. Everybody's more relaxed when you're on vacation. And it's not corporate. Like I said, it's got a cool vibe. It is a lounge area, but it's also a work space where we have all the components there at your fingertips. We bring in the wood so you can choose the different woods for the backs and sides and tops, and just kind of immerse yourself in what the custom shop is about. And then we have a separate room where you can test the guitar. It's a soundproof room where you can test out, really hear the guitar. Also good for creating content. So it's multi-purpose, but we opened it in October, and it has pretty much been full the entire time. So far, so good.
Are you able to have more than one client in there at the same time, or do you try to limit it? Yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, we generally try to limit it to make it more exclusive, but it can hold more than one.
Okay. And I presume you've thought of everything, and you've got the hotel that the whale of a client should stay in, and maybe some dining recommendations.
The whole package. We got everything from the car that we picked them up with, so there's everything.
It's not just some Uber.
Nope, it's my Honda Accord. No, just kidding. But,
I love it.
But that's part of it. That's part of the experience, is making sure all those details are thought through.
Yeah, I mean, the factory without that is something that every guitar lover should visit at some point in their life, because it's staggering. It's just staggering. There's no other word for it.
Yeah, it's an incredible tool for me from a promotion standpoint, to get to know our customers, just, for them to really see what's going on. And we get about 20,000 people a year walk through these doors. So
wow,
it's doing its job.
Wow. All right. So you got the custom shop lounge, or what are we calling that?
We're calling it the Experience Center.
The Experience Center. We've got a NAMM that you're excited about, some artists that you're dangling the carrot that Fretboard Journal followers will admire. Anything else you want to tell me about 2025?
I think the other area where we are putting a lot of focus are our female players as well. We've been seeing it, just more and more females coming into the market, playing and sticking with it. Some of the incredible new artists are female. Mm-hmm. Trying to work more with them as well. So we're hoping that we can continue to grow with that segment. Obviously, that's just a piece of the puzzle, and we're not forsaking everything else for that market, but it is definitely a growing area for us.
For sure. And do you look at genres of music and styles of music as growth opportunities or retracting as well? And if so, what do you see on the horizon?
I mean, that's a good question, because we do look at the different genres. I just see a lot of growth across genres. I mean, the Latin market is exploding, so we definitely want to take advantage of that. But at the same time, bluegrass is still so strong for us, and we want to continue to work closely with that genre. Country also, so makes my job a little harder, because I can't point to one and say this is where we need to go and this is how we're going to grow.
Yeah,
we need to make sure we are paying attention to everybody. And it's probably not the best answer, but that's what we're doing.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, I can't thank you enough. I hope to see you. I'll see you at NAMM. I hope to see you guys in Chicago again at our Fretboard Summit in August. It's always a blast.
Absolutely. We love the Fretboard Summit. I mean, it's such an intimate place to really get to know, our customers, and everybody that attends is just so passionate. It's just, you guys put on a great show.
And you guys want a bigger room, so I'm busy trying to figure out. I'm looking at blueprints, trying to find you a bigger space, which I love.
Well, that's how much we love it. We need more space.
Perfect. We'll find it for you. I can't thank you enough for taking the time before the holidays, and it's like the calm before the NAMM storm, I'm sure, or maybe it's not calm over there. I don't know, but
yeah, I look calm, but on the surface. But
all right. Well, thanks so much.
We're ready though. We're excited.
I love it.
Thanks, Jason.
All right. That was my conversation with Mike Nelson of Martin Guitars. If you enjoy our podcast, the simplest way to support us is just to go to iTunes and leave us a review, or on Spotify. Helps others find our show. Obviously, if you love what we're about, also please share it on whatever social media platform you all are using these days. Thanks as always for tuning in. We'll be back in just a couple of days with another episode of the Fretboard Journal podcast.